Live from parts unknown, you're listening to Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast, the only wrestling podcast on the planet, we think. Sit back, relax, prepare for positivity to run through your veins as Simon Miller gives you your weekly dose of powerful pro wrestling audio. It is Miller Time.
Hello and welcome to Simon Miller's Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Simon Miller and you are listening to a Pro Wrestling Podcast. And that's right, I've got a treat for you this week because I'm giving you additional content. You never know when it's going to happen. But that's what 2019 is all about. Throwing the surprises out there and seeing what is going to happen. But it's the start of the week. I hope you are having a nice week. I hope you've got nice things planned over the next 7 days. Make sure you do keep an eye out for a couple of more podcasts that are going to go out this week. But before we do get there, I do have, I love it. Everyone knows that this podcast before, you know how much I enjoy doing this. All my podcasts are supported by patreon.com/SimonMiller316. You can go over there now, just throw $1 in the hat. It's how I support all my personal products. But it also means I get patrons on to chat about pro wrestling and all that kind of stuff. And today, I got my man Sergio, once again, coming all the way from the United States of America. Dude, how are you doing today?
Simon, I'm doing very well, man. Very well. How are you today?
I'm good, man. I love it. Like, just to break kayfabe and break the fourth wall. Right now, it's about 9 o'clock on a Sunday. But for you, it's like in the middle of the day. I love it, man. I love it. I say the same thing every time, but it's just cool.
Yeah, man. It's so cool to meet people from the other side of the world. I don't get to do it every day. I do it like maybe once every blue moon, so
absolutely.
I love to do it.
And the coolest thing is we've been brought together by the magic of wrestling. And that's why I love it. That's why I love it, man. It brings people together. You can be at a random wrestling event by yourself, but you always know, hey, I can go chat about wrestling, and somebody else will want to, have that chat with me. So, yeah, I think it's great.
Absolutely. We have wrestling and we have the internet. I don't know if in the early 90s we could have done this, so,
Nah, dude, we would have been, like, on sending letters to each other or something. I don't even know what people did. That tape trading.
Letters, owls, boats, I don't know how, but...
yeah, carrier pigeons. Carrier pigeons with a little note saying, man, Raw sucks. And you'd be like, yeah, Raw does suck, and send it back.
Yeah, like a month later.
Exactly, yeah. It still sucks. Right, dude, so let's get some sort of background on you and stuff, because I always think, well, look, I think I've proven it now with this version of the podcast. You just never know what people are going to say. It's incredible. When we had Chevelle on earlier, last week, I should say, he was telling us how one day he woke up and WWE television just vanished from his life because they took it off the channel. Like, it blew my brain. So
no way.
Yeah. Just one day he woke up and imagine that. I mean, it's different now with social media, but imagine one day you woke up and you actually liked wrestling, and I do, and Raw wasn't there anymore. You'd be like, okay, I'll go watch something else. But yeah,
I mean, the way it's going now, I don't know if I miss it too much, but hey, it's still wrestling. I want to catch up somehow.
Yeah,
TV somehow.
Absolutely. Well, dude, let me know when did you start watching it? Like, what do you think? We'll get to the current product in a minute. But how did you start watching it? How did you get into pro wrestling? What's your crazy story?
Oh, dude. I'm 26 now. I started watching wrestling when I was like about 6 or 7 years old.
Nice.
So I've been watching wrestling for like 20 years around there, man. It's been a thrill ride right from the beginning. I'll tell you, I guess I'll go back and tell you where I started.
Do it,
man. I actually didn't start with the WWF. Actually, the promotion that got me into wrestling proper was actually this little one. You may have heard about it. You may have not. It's called WCW.
I remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It was WCW. Because I remember... I don't know if you're going to believe me, because this is like the craziest first memory. I don't even know if it's a first memory. This is just the farthest I can remember about what I was watching during the WWF. But you will not believe which two superstars were in the ring.
I can't. I'm genuinely excited now. I'm genuinely excited because it's going to be someone like Buff Bagwell and Disco Inferno or something like that.
Not even like that. Not even that. When I turned on the channel, and again, I don't know if this is my first memory. This is just the one that I remember the farthest back. All right. You're not going to believe this. It was the Fabulous Moolah versus Mae Young.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome.
Dude, I saw that, and even as a 6 or 7-year-old, I'm like, what? They have these two ladies fighting? I mean, they can't be any younger than like 50, 40, 50 years old. What is this?
I think they were always old, man.
Yeah, so like even as a kid, I found that weird. So I think one day I guess I just, stopped watching it and I changed the channel and WCW was on, I guess I'll give you the brief rundown, man. WCW, it was the promotion that got me started. And actually the wrestler there's one wrestler there that is responsible for getting me into pro wrestling.
Yeah.
He's actually my favorite wrestler of all time. He's not a common pick amongst people. I don't hear very many people say that, this person is my favorite wrestler. So, it might be out of left field, but it's actually your dad, Bill Goldberg.
No, dude, I think that's a fair shout, man. Like, I do agree with you. Goldberg doesn't get the love that he once did. Like, there seems to be some kind of stigma about Goldberg now, or that. And my weird thing about Goldberg is loads of people say, I mean, I love Goldberg. There's no point in pretending otherwise. Like, I was the other way around. Like, I was a WWF guy, but I started, what really made me want to watch WCW was Goldberg. I heard about this guy, and when you watched him, I thought this is incredible. And so many people now are like, oh, he didn't have any good matches, and he was just booked to run through people. And I'm like, yeah, that's why it was so good. That's why that's why I loved it. Like, it was just brilliant. Like, it was. You never seen anything like it. And even today, when they bring someone up, like Oscar, for example, and everyone says, oh, you can't just get it to run through everyone. You're like, yes, you can. That works.
Absolutely.
And I know it works because I've seen it happen. So, no, I completely understand that, man. I completely understand that he was, he was once in a lifetime, sort of lightning in a bottle kind of a thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, again, I was maybe 6, 7 years old when, this was like around, I think 98 was like his rise through WCW. The undefeated streak happened, I think around 98, I think it was. So, I mean, I was 6, maybe 7 years old. I didn't know any proper wrestling, like, technicality at the time. So I didn't know what pushing somebody, putting somebody over was. I didn't know what a squash match was. I didn't know what heel versus face was. I was just looking at this dude beating the crap out of everybody, like 2-minute matches, 3-minute matches. And for me at the time as a little kid, even then, I'm like, wow, like this guy is like legit, like the best wrestler I've ever seen. So ever since then, man, it was Goldberg. It was Goldberg for me. I don't really remember when exactly I stopped watching WCW, because I know after a while I stopped watching WCW and I went back to watching the WWF, and I stayed with the WWF until now, basically. But it was around the time, because Goldberg, he had a monster run. I don't even remember how long his undefeated streak lasted, but it must have lasted like a year plus or something like that. And I saw a lot of his matches during that time, okay? And I was very biased. Again, this was my favorite wrestler even then, even now. So I was very biased. I loved watching him beat the crap out of everybody. But once he started, getting some obstacles in the way in the form of like the NWO and Hulk Hogan, and they started, running roughshod through him, I didn't like that very much, and as a kid, I didn't know what storyline was. I didn't know that, baby faces have to get beaten up a little bit to get their comeback later. I didn't know what that was. So when, Goldberg started, getting pretty, NWO was pretty much a big obstacle for him. I got upset. I didn't think Goldberg was going to come back from it. So I just stopped watching WCW. I just got mad.
Well, when do you think that was? Where did Goldberg go? Where are we talking about? What kind of year?
Man, it must have been, I would say, late 98. I mean, again,
okay, right, yeah. So
one of the earliest. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So that was it was after he'd lost to Nash, then, right?
Exactly. I think the last match I remember, against the farthest memory I have of WCW, I think maybe he was in a cage match against, I think maybe Nash and Scott Hall, maybe Hulk Hogan in there. And I think they had him tied to the cage with handcuffs, both hands. And like, I don't know, they were beating the crap out of him. And again, I was a Goldberg guy. I didn't care about anybody else. I was just a Goldberg guy. So I loved watching him win and win and win. Every time he won, I came back the next week and I kept watching more. But then, NWO started posing a big threat to him. And that's where I'm kind of like, oh, I don't know if he's going to come back from this. It's a lot of people. So imagine as a kid, when you're biased towards something and, something bad happens to that something or someone, you kind of go somewhere else. You don't want to see your favorite person lose like that. And I didn't like to see that. So I left.
I mean, obviously, you summed it up brilliant there, because, again, the criticism Goldberg gets today is, oh, he couldn't work, he couldn't wrestle. No kid cares about that. A kid cares about some dude coming out, snorting smoke out of his nose, looking pissed off like he's going to murder some fools, and then backing it up in the ring. Like, that is what was cool, which is why I never understood, this feeling that WCW felt like they had to end the streak. Like, I would have been happy if he'd never lost the streak, to be honest. I mean, maybe it would have got boring after a while. But the way they did it with Kevin Nash was just, oh man, I just hated it. I hated it so much. I hated it then. I hated it now. There was no need to do it. It didn't help anybody. And I think you're right. I think it really did just, it clipped Goldberg's wings, right? There was no need to do it. And from that point on, they didn't know what to do with him. They had no clue.
Right, and I don't even remember what happened after that. Again, this is me as a little kid. I didn't know any wrestling technicalities. So if he did get his comeback eventually, I didn't see it. I wasn't there to see it because I had already jumped ship to WWF. So I didn't see that.
No, exactly, man. No, I totally agree with you. So you leave WCW and you go over to WWE, I'm guessing in late 98. So I'm imagining that Stone Cold Steve Austin is the guy that drags you in.
Absolutely, man. That's exactly the guy that brings me in, man. The guy that just doesn't give a damn about anything. He does whatever he wants. He's stunnering his boss. And remember, at the time, I was a little kid, but I was already, knowledgeable about, employee versus boss. I knew what that relationship was. So, as a kid looking at an employee essentially in Stone Cold beating the crap out of his boss and Mr. McMahon, I mean, that was gold for me. And, just his attitude, the way he composed himself, the way he talked, the way he came into the ring and, pretty much stuck the middle finger at everybody, but it was cool. It wasn't anything like insulting or anything. He was my favorite. Like out of the WWF superstars that I've seen, Stone Cold is definitely my favorite of all time in terms of like WWF/WWE superstars. Yeah. He's always been my favorite. So he was the one that, brought me in, but it wasn't just him. I liked The Rock as well. Really liked The Undertaker. The Undertaker actually scared the crap out of me, anyway, to be honest with you. Especially, it was probably like late 99 maybe when I think he turned heel, right, and he formed the Ministry of Darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, like I remember he used to walk to the ring, and the ramp at the time was just a straight shot to the ring. There was no curving around or anything. It was just a straight line, straight walk to the ring. And he would walk to the ring with his eyeballs folded into the back of his head. And I'm watching it on TV, and I'm scared, man. I'm like, what is this guy about to do? I mean, I can't imagine the people sitting on either side of the ramp in the very front row. I don't know how they're feeling, but I'm watching it at home. I'm like, I don't want to mess with this guy.
That's the best thing about being a kid with wrestling, man. Like, everything you've just said there. Goldberg wins you over because you think, man, that guy could kick my ass. Stone Cold Steve Austin wins you over because you think, oh, man, that guy doesn't care. And Undertaker wins you over because, like, oh, my gosh, this guy's really scary. Like, that's why I absolutely love wrestling when you're a kid. In many ways, it's the best time to watch wrestling because you just believe it for what it is.
Absolutely. And I was watching, even at the time, I was watching guys like Shawn Michaels, watching guys like Mankind, again, The Rock, Triple H when he became Triple H. So, it was a really good time. I can see why a lot of people, really like the Attitude Era because it was just a completely different era and it brought a lot of new fans in, myself included. So, I attribute a lot of what, my likes of pro wrestling to the Attitude Era. First and foremost to WCW, but, secondly to Stone Cold and the Attitude Era. I mean, it was just a golden age for me.
What did you think about the differences in presentation? Because I know, because I went from, don't get me wrong, like when WCW was awesome, it got me too. I think it got everybody. But the one thing I always noticed, that WWE always just looked a bit slicker. Like the production always looked a bit nicer, it looked a bit brighter. Whereas WCW was a bit darker, a bit kind of, old school, I say, for lack of better words. Did you notice anything like that? Because I'm guessing, I was aware of it, but it didn't affect my enjoyment of the product again because I'm a kid and I don't care.
Right. I mean, for me, I guess in terms of presentation, I guess WWF was just a little bit more edgier. The content sometimes tended to be a little bit violent in terms of the matches. They pretty much said whatever they wanted, except for maybe a few magic words. A lot of really good promos. Guys, they looked like they were having a lot of fun. Like, I don't know at the time if, they were really having fun behind the scenes or not, but they looked like a bunch of guys that were really having a lot of fun, doing what they do, portraying their characters. And I don't know, man, at the time, I just found that really, really fun. So I think in terms of presentation, yeah, there must have been something about WWF that made me stick to them. I don't know if it was the edgier content, the way they spoke, the way they dressed, how many characters they had. But it was something about it that besides the whole Goldberg thing, but there was something that, made me gravitate more to WWF. I don't know what it is specifically, but again, everything that I mentioned, I'm pretty sure contributed to my willingness to jump ship pretty much.
No, I get it. But I think a lot of people did too. And also, in hindsight, you probably did it right because, WCW self-imploded after all of that. So,
right.
You missed all the garbage, whereas obviously WWE, as we know, continued to get better and better. And then, that eventually hit a brick wall too, as it was always going to do because you can't keep that up forever. So, how do we get from sort of 20, 21 years? How do we get from there to where we are now? Like, do you take any breaks? What's your story from then?
Well, I mean, the way I kept up with it a lot too wasn't just TV. I was a fanatic, and I still am, but I was a really big fanatic at the time. I collected I don't know if you remember the action figures, the WWF action figures of The Rock. Yeah. You remember that? I used to collect that. I mean, I used to read books, like The Rock's autobiography, Stone Cold's autobiography. I used to play the video games a lot too. So I became a fanatic. That was pretty much like my way of sticking to the product. Now, in terms of whether I took a break or not, or when specifically, I can't remember. But there are certain little pieces here and there that I remember shortly after that. So more or less, I remember the invasion angle more or less. I remember the debuts of, guys like Randy Orton, John Cena, Batista, Brock Lesnar. For me to think of when I took a break, I would have to go back to a little bit more recent because I don't remember at the time, when I took a break. But I know for a fact, and this is going to be very, very selfish, I know, but I'm an Undertaker guy. So I was watching the product up until I think it was his match against Brock Lesnar. Was it at WrestleMania 30?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always been an Undertaker guy as well. He's like my second favorite behind Stone Cold. So when he lost his undefeated streak to Brock Lesnar, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I was the kind of guy that didn't want Undertaker to lose his undefeated streak. I just didn't think it should have happened. The company had already let him reach, 21 wins without a loss.
Yeah.
Why end it now? It felt kind of cheap. It was just, I guess, to put Brock Lesnar over. I didn't feel like Brock Lesnar really needed that. I think he could have gone on to do exactly what he's done and, amass the same popularity, the same amount of followers without that win. That's just my personal opinion. But again, it's really more on the Undertaker side. I've always been an Undertaker guy. His undefeated streak and all that at WrestleMania, I didn't like it. I didn't like the fact that they ended it right then and there. So I guess I must have taken a break up until like maybe 2017-ish, more or less. So, quite a few years, like 3 or 4 years without watching it.
No, I can see. I think because we had a few people have said that they didn't like the Undertaker result to the point they took a break. Because I think in many ways that Undertaker WrestleMania streak was at the time sort of the last thing that people invested in, right? That was why a lot of people tuned into WrestleMania. Like the argument was even, well, it doesn't matter what the main event is. The real main event is, whatever the Undertaker's going to do. I think we talked about it before, but I'm always torn on the Undertaker thing because while I totally agree with what you're saying, I also think that the impact of having him lose, as you have just said, it stopped you to watch wrestling. And I know you don't ever want to do that. You never want to do an angle that makes people stop watching wrestling. But the fact that it had that power over you, the fact that it had that emotional impact on you, I think that's why I like it so much. I like it because it was that last thing that people believed in. And the fact that in a way, we got to experience what it was like seeing that fall out. For me, from a very devil's advocate, taking a step back point of view, I did get a kick out of it. Like I did, it was just crazy to see it. Everybody was talking about it and nobody could believe it. Like that conversation went on for about, a month or so. It's still going on now, years removed. Yeah. So that's why I liked about it. It created a moment, and I love moments.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I don't even think I don't remember if I was watching that WrestleMania specifically live, but I did get a notification on my phone. I had forgotten to turn off. I usually turn off notifications. I turn off everything when there's a pay-per-view just so I don't get spoiled. But in case I'm not in my house watching it. But I had been spoiled. I got the notification saying that the Undertaker had lost, which actually was a really good friend of mine who's into wrestling that told me, and I'm like, Undertaker lost at WrestleMania. No. That can't be true. So when I got home, I must have gotten home really late at night, maybe 11, 12 midnight. I watched that match only. I went back and rewatched the entire WrestleMania event later on. But I wanted to watch that match specifically because I just couldn't, fathom Undertaker losing at WrestleMania. And there you go. He lost. And, my facial expression was the same one as the guy that was in the front row, remember? The guy that had his mouth and his eyes wide open. That was me. That was me at home. But I was shocked, but I was kind of, again, it's I hate to admit it because it is kind of very selfish. Like, why would I leave wrestling for just one little thing, I look back on it and I realize the error of my ways, and I'm glad that I'm, I'm into it again. But again, at the time, I was such an Undertaker guy that, man, when he lost at WrestleMania, I was just like, ugh, I don't know if I can take it.
Yeah,
I couldn't take it.
No, I get it, man. But again, that is why I love it. Like, you just don't get that kind of believability anymore. And look, it's nobody's fault. As you've just said, that was a storyline that had been built up for 20 years, basically. 2 decades is... I know they didn't really kick it into gear till about, 12 years in or however long it was, but it was still there. You still had the history and, some of the matches were crap. But I think that's the real thing that stands out for me. And I actually agree with you. I think, done with the right booking, that Brock Lesnar could have become the Brock Lesnar we know now without that. But I also do think it did kickstart it. It did make that transformation happen a lot quicker. And yeah, like you say, when I was watching it and it happened, I was watching it at work. I had to go to work that day, but I had quite I had quite a cool job, so I was able to have it sort of up in the corner of my screen, and as I was watching it. And yeah, like when that happened, I remember just being like, there is no way that's happened. And I loved it. Like, I questioned it. I thought maybe there'd been a mistake. I don't know. There's something about that feeling of knowing what you're watching isn't quote unquote real, but at the same time, absolutely, from a storyline perspective and whatever we'll call it, completely buying in. There's nothing like it. And that's why for me, I look back and yeah, I love the emotional aspect of it. I loved it. To me, that ranks along there with the CM Punk promo, the stuff that Austin used to do. Loads of other stuff we could talk about because it was real. People really cared. They gave a shit about that streak. And when it was taken away, especially like a guy like Brock Lesnar, who already had controversy, he'd already left the company once and he was the golden goose and so on and so forth. It just created an atmosphere that, I don't think we'll ever be able to top it. Unless you're going to put 20 years into a storyline again, which you're probably not.
I mean, why? I don't see how they do that now. I mean, who would they pick to do that? I mean, I would have thought maybe Asuka would have extended her undefeated streak a little bit more, but they decided to end it prematurely, in my opinion. I kind of felt that at this year's WrestleMania, she should have won the title. She should have kept her undefeated streak a little bit more. Allow her to have at least one really good SmackDown Women's title reign. But it didn't happen either, so I don't know. For me, they end streaks in a way that I feel like it could have been done better.
I've just noticed a theme here, man. You like streaks, I realize.
Yeah,
that's
I do, man. Especially if it's someone like, The Undertaker, even Asuka, I saw her through NXT. I thought she was amazing. And, I really do. I really like streaks. And when they end, depending on how they end, I'm kind of like, I don't know.
Well, man, I would go as far, and I'm sure somebody out there will be able to correct me. But right now, top of my head, I can't think of one streak that has ended well. I totally agree with you about Oscar. I thought it was it was well ahead of its time and we could have done so much more with it. The Undertaker one is arguable, but therefore, because it's arguable, it's not 100%. Goldbergs was an absolute travesty. I mean, that was just bad. MVP had a streak for a while, but that didn't go right. I mean, Rusev had a streak for a while. That didn't,
sorry to interrupt, but didn't Ryback had a streak?
Yeah. Yeah, and he lost to CM Punk in that bizarre Hell in a Cell match. So,
yep.
Was it that match? Whenever it was, but yeah, they didn't have the payoff that maybe you wanted from a streak, which again starts asking, by begging the question, why are we doing streaks if we don't know where we're going with it? But yeah, I mean, it's a strange thing, a streak, because it's a great way to introduce somebody into the company. Like, I think people forget that when NXT people come up, you don't know who they are really. But if Asuka comes up and can start saying, "I've never lost," and she backs it up, then you go, okay, well, I'll take this person seriously because the company is taking her seriously and she never loses. But then, when she does lose her streak, she goes into complete free fall, as she did this year, and didn't really get picked up until December. It was just ridiculous. So, yeah, the streak is an interesting thing. I mean, for me, Goldbergs will always be the worst. That whole cattle prod with the cattle prod thing, and it just deflated him. Then they turned him heel. It was like, what are we doing? What are we doing? So yeah, I'll never get that.
I don't know. Again, like you said, streaks are just very hard to do nowadays because you have to pick a superstar that not only is doing very well in the ring, but someone that people can believe. And
absolutely,
these superstars that you've mentioned, I think we all to a certain extent, like you said, all this is debatable. Maybe for us, Goldberg's streak was a travesty, but maybe for somebody it was the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
So it's all very subjective, but I think for the company specifically, you have to choose someone that, not only is very imposing and does very well, but that people can really get behind them, and it's very difficult to do that. So again, very selfish on my part. I shouldn't have left I shouldn't have stopped watching WWE just for one little thing. I think back on it now, I'm like, Sergio, what the hell did you do? Like it was stupid. It was stupid. I look back on it and I'm like, what the hell was I doing? I missed a lot of really good things. I missed the rise of NXT. I missed, when John Cena had those great U.S. Open Challenge matches. Remember, for the United States Championship?
Yeah, they were good, man.
I missed a lot of good things, man. I remember watching the CM Punk stuff here and there, but again, I wasn't there. AJ Lee when she had her rise to the women's division. I missed a lot of stuff, and I kept up with it in the years that I didn't watch it, but I should have been there. But what can you do now?
Lesson learned, man.
Lesson learned.
What about when Goldberg comes back to the WWE in 2016? Because to me, that is one of my favorite runs and favorite memories of recent times. I thought they did that brilliantly. I thought they kind of expunged his run in 2003, which I thought it was okay, but you could tell there was a kind of an internal fight there between... Actually, let's do both. What do you think about when Goldberg comes into WWE first time around and they kind of treat him like WWE's version of Goldberg, which for me personally was not good at all. For the reasons I just said, he just didn't feel like the Goldberg I wanted. They even changed his entrance music. And I was like, no, just do Goldberg. Goldberg works. Yeah. But then they do it again in 2016. And honestly, that match with Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series, right up to that match again with Lesnar at WrestleMania 33 or whatever it was, I thought it was great. That's still my favorite, and it probably will be forever, my favorite ever sub 5 minute match. Because it was just two big dudes absolutely kicking the crap out of each other, which I always love. But, you've left WCW in 1998. Here you are kind of, 4 or 5 years on. You see your guy come into WWE. You must be a little bit upset because, it's kind of crap.
Yeah. No, absolutely. When he returned recently and at the end of 2016, I think it was. I mean, I thought it was, I was really excited. I had seen his first run, back in 2003, 2004. But like you, I didn't feel like he was just the Goldberg that I knew. Yeah. I felt like they had kind of like, I don't know, if he was immortal, let's say in WCW, I don't know, they had kind of like weakened him a little bit.
Definitely, man, 100%.
He wasn't as imposing, and he did have a bit of success. I think he did win the World Heavyweight Championship. I think it was from Triple H at Bad Blood. I think it was something like that. I think they put him in the Elimination Chamber one time, and he was pretty much wrecking everybody. Yeah, but I think at the end he lost. I think he lost to Triple H? I think it was, didn't he?
That's right. Like that. So that was the match where everybody felt like Goldberg should win, but of course we had to leave it one more month, and he beat Triple H at the next pay-per-view. But yeah, that was exactly what happened.
Absolutely. And then at WrestleMania 20, he had his final match at the time against Brock Lesnar, and it just wasn't a very good match. I could tell neither man wanted to really be there. Yeah. I mean, literally the best thing about that match was Stone Cold's entrance and then Stone Cold stunnering both of them.
Yeah, he did. He just took over the entire thing. Yeah. Oh, man, it was so funny. I remember literally, that's all people wanted to see was that. Could you just kick his ass?
Absolutely. So when he came back in 2016, I felt like he was doing a lot of good for himself, because I don't know if you saw I think it was the WWE Network. I think it was the 24 documentary on Goldberg. Yeah. But when he came back, he was pretty much doing it for his son and his family and his wife. He kind of wanted to. He felt bad about leaving on a sour note. Back in 2004, and he kind of wanted to redo that and really show his son what he can do. That he likes wrestling and he wants to leave on a good note. So I guess when you combine that with what he did, in the ring, in storyline, it was a really good return. I mean, that one specifically was a really good return. And man, when he beat Brock Lesnar in, I don't know what it was, like a minute at Survivor Series 2016, I was ecstatic.
I thought it was great, man, because you didn't see it coming. Like, you didn't see it coming.
I didn't see it coming.
And once again, I mean, this ties in perfectly. The reason I loved it so much is because, again, it separated everyone down the middle. Much like the WrestleMania 30 Taker versus Lesnar match. You had 50% of people going, oh, man, this is the best thing ever. And you had another 50% of people being like, what we've just done? We've just jobbed out Brock Lesnar. But that's why I liked it. I like it when wrestling matches can cause debate like that, because it goes to show that people have invested. They've bought in. Because otherwise you wouldn't be having that chat to begin with. I loved it. Honestly, that whole feud is one of my favorites of the last few years. I just thought it worked perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that match. I think I might have been at home alone, I think, watching it. But, man, I was screaming. You would have thought I was watching it with like 5 or 6 people. I was screaming at the top of my lungs. Like, I remember, the match started. Brock Lesnar kind of shoved him a little bit. Brock Lesnar shoved him harder, threw him to the floor, and then he gave him that first spear. And I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. In my mind, I was just thinking Goldberg of Orger. I was thinking another squash match, but I'm like, no, not to Brock Lesnar. And then when he hit that second spear, by then I was on my feet. I was like, I'm ready to see this. I'm ready to see this. And when he hit that jackhammer 1, 2, 3, dude, if I was there live, I would have been the loudest person in the arena. Like, it was amazing. Again, you have to understand, I'm a Goldberg guy. He's my favorite wrestler. So for me, that's special. That's special. But, I can tell, I can understand if someone, isn't really into him, how, again, like you said, it's debatable. You may like it or you may not. But for me, it was one of the best things ever. Honestly.
No, dude, I agree with you. I agree. I bought into that hard because I remember looking at the running time of that event, because I watched it the next morning on the network and thinking, we don't have a lot of time left on the clock. So I was thinking, they must do a run-in, or there must be some smoz. But then when Goldberg just kicked his, it just got me. It was explosive, it was impactful, and also, given what we were talking about earlier with the first iteration of Goldberg in WWE, we finally got WCW version. That is what WCW used to be. He got in the ring and he wrecked people. And Lesnar proved once again that really, when he wants to sell, he's up there with me with one of the best people in the world when it comes to selling. I don't think there are many. I mean, Shawn Michaels probably. But yeah, to me, when Lesnar sells, it looks like he's in real pain. Like he's so good at it. And I came away going, well, what happens now? What happens to Lesnar? What are they going to do here? And as it turns out, behind the scenes, it was all Lesnar and Goldberg saying we should do this, and everybody agreeing. And I always like to point out, yes, Kevin Owens kind of got caught in the crosshairs a little bit, but. Right. The story was so much fun and so much entertaining. That's just the way sometimes. And as I say, constantly over here on my videos, sometimes if you've got a good story and you need to waylay other people, do it, but just make sure you come back to them and push them as and when makes sense. But I don't mind people being quote-unquote jobbed out if it's helping the story that we're focusing on. And that's what we did. That's what we did. And I was so amped for that match at WrestleMania. It was my favourite match that I was looking forward to. My favourite match when all was said and done. Yeah, just absolutely brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely. And one of the things I forget, too, and all that, one thing that I forget was that Kevin Owens was Universal Champion at around that time before that WrestleMania match. I forget about that. I completely forget about the fact that he was even champion, because, he was champion for what, like maybe a couple of months, 2-3 months, and I don't know if he ever, up to right now, I don't know if he's, properly recovered from that, unfortunately for him. Because I like Kevin Owens a lot. I think he's great. But, yeah, I was with you, man. That WrestleMania match, I was super hyped for it. And, yeah, got to be one of my because I can't, again, I was a little kid when Goldberg had his, his huge run in WCW. So I can't remember any match specifically. I haven't gone back and seen it, unfortunately, because I've been so, trying to, I've been really enamored with the current product. So I haven't gone back and seen it. But I can't remember many of his sub 5-minute matches then. So, yeah, this one with Lesnar at WrestleMania 33 has to be one of my favorites as well.
Yeah, me too. Definitely my favorite sub 5-minute match ever. I honestly, because you can put it on, enjoy it, and then it's over. Okay, goodbye.
It's over.
I'm going to walk away now. Yeah. Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. So good.
Absolutely.
And as we are talking about older wrestlers or veteran wrestlers, whatever you want to call it, it's remiss of me not to mention this earlier, but of course it came out over the last, I think, 24 to 48 hours that on Raw, which will air later today because we'll put this up on Monday, Hulk Hogan is coming back to the WWE to do some kind of tribute to Mean Gene Okerlund. Now, it absolutely sucks what happened to Mean Gene. We talked about this on the podcast last week.
Yep. Yeah, man.
I mean, I haven't shied away from saying that personally I just don't want to see Hulk Hogan back, especially at a time where the idea for WWE is brand new, right? Brand new era. I want to see brand new stuff. I do think Hulk Hogan's too controversial for me to enjoy the product. That's just me. Loads of people always get in touch and say they don't agree, and that's cool. It's just one man's opinion. Doesn't mean I'm right. Doesn't mean I'm wrong. That's just me. But then you also have to take into the fact they are doing it around some kind of tribute angle, which makes it a little bit more. Well, it depends. It depends on your take on it. But look, you saw WCW, so you know who Hollywood Hogan is. I'm sure you learn about who Hulk Hogan is too. Do you want to see Hulk Hogan? Do you not want to see Hulk Hogan? Do you think it's a little bit? I'm trying to. I don't want to say this because I don't want to be horrible, but it's a question people are saying. Do you think it's a little bit untoward on WWE's part to try and kind of slip him back into television using? I'm not saying they are doing that. I'm saying that's what a lot of people have said.
Right. I mean, I guess for me specifically, the rise of Hulk Hogan, all that, it happened either when I was really, really young and not watching it, or before my time, So Hulk Hogan was, he personally, he was never really like my guy.
Yeah.
I never saw him as a favorite just because, I didn't see very much of him in his heyday. I did see, his little run, I think it was 2003, 2004, when he was feuding with the likes of The Rock and Stone Cold. And then later, with The Undertaker, when The Undertaker turned heel. So I did see all that. But Hulk Hogan, for me specifically, has never really been my guy. So I don't know. I just don't. I mean, I appreciate everything he's done for wrestling at the time. He definitely turned it into, helped turn it into a global product. Many people were watching it. But, again, I wasn't there for any of that. So he's never really been my guy. Now, the fact that we're going to see him, tomorrow for Monday Night Raw, do I really want to see that? I don't know. I really don't know if I want to see that. I mean, I remember I read that notification, a few days ago, and I was looking at it, I'm like, okay, with a question mark, I don't know. I mean, I know that he and, Mean Gene had a really good relationship. So
Yeah.
I guess on that front, it makes sense. But, in terms of, all the controversy surrounding him, I don't know. I hope it doesn't overshadow what we're trying to do. And it's, we're trying to pay tribute to, one of the greatest sports entertainer interviewers, people of all, ever, and me, Gene Okerlund. So I just hope it doesn't, I just hope his controversies, everything surrounding him doesn't overshadow all of that. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I agree. And I hope it's a one-off as well because,
right.
I bought in hard to this whole, new era thing. And I'll get your take on it in a second as well. But I truly believe that WWE is going to go out of their way to try and make it work. And if we get a couple of months down the line and I'm wrong, I'm happy for everyone to come and call me an idiot. But I'm a positive guy. I like to, I like to go, glass half full. If I'm wrong, well, at least I enjoyed the ride. The ride for a little bit. But, for me, bringing in someone like Hulk Hogan doesn't work with that. It doesn't work with the idea that we're going for. Like, I want to see new faces and I want to see new matches. I sound like Shane McMahon. But it's true. I want to see a new format. I don't mind legends coming back. And we've talked about the power of Goldberg, for example. I really, really enjoyed what he did. But he was used in the right way. And I never felt like he overshadowed everybody else. I don't want Hulk Hogan being the GM. I don't want Hulk Hogan, being on TV every single week because it does fill up time that somebody else could step in there. And if that person doesn't work, okay, well, at least we tried. And I'm all about that, just giving people's opportunities. So that's my big thing. 2019 for me should be a brand new era for Raw and all that, and we're not going to get that if we go back to things we've done before. But, I mean, do you believe it? Do you believe they're actually going to try something different, or do you think we're going to get to sort of like February, March, April and go, oh, it's actually the exact same as it always has been?
I mean, that's what I was thinking originally, when they first introduced this new concept of, bringing in new faces, new matchups, new rivalries, new feuds, things like that. That's what I was thinking, because I've always been skeptical of when WWE tells me, oh, we're going to do something new and it's going to change, the way we do things and more people are going to see it, because they have promised things like that similarly in the past, and, 3, 4, 5 months down the line, it kind of reverts back to what it was 3, 4, 5 months early before, they announced all that. So initially, I was a little bit skeptical of it, but now with the news breaking out on New Year's Day that All Elite Wrestling is officially a thing, I think they might try to do something. They have to, because it's kind of and I know that they announced this about maybe 2 to 3 weeks before AEW was officially announced. But Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks, they're very for the fans. They do the things that they want to do, but they're very for the fans. They really want their fans to, see their product and see something special. Look at All In. All In was a huge success. And, it sold out in, what was it, like 30 minutes? Before any matches were announced. WWE has to see that as a president, like, hey, Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks, they know what they're doing. And they're going to be doing something that's going to be very for the fans, very for, professional wrestling in general. So now I actually think that WWE, I don't know if they will per se, but they definitely should do something new now. Now it can't be just words. They absolutely have to do something new because, I'm not saying that AEW is going to come and, put WWE out of business. It's not going to happen. WWE is a big, is a big company set to make a lot of money in the future. The $2 billion in TV rights alone. I think they're set to make, what is it, like $450 million with the Saudi Arabia deal over the next 10 years, I think it is.
Something crazy like that,
yeah. So, they're set to make a lot of money, but, the last thing they want is for people to, shift over and start watching, only AEW and what they're doing. So now I think they have to. I don't know if they will, but I think they absolutely have to try something new. Everything that they said, they need to make it a reality because, again, Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks, all these guys, they're going to do something new. They're going to most probably do something that we're all going to love. Why are we going to, doubt them? Look at the success that was All In. You can't doubt them anymore. So
no, it's true. You'd be a fool to now because they've got evidence, right? They've got proof. And as soon as you've got that, you have to take them seriously. And I think you hit the nail on the head there as well. Like, it's all come together at the at the right time or the wrong time, depending on what kind of perspective you want to take on it. But yeah, like, a few weeks ago, they have said, okay, we hear you, we're going to change it. And then also at the exact same time, you do have a new promotion led by a group of people that are stars. And the criticism there is, oh, well, you're just going to have a bunch of people with kick pads doing super kicks. Well, the irony is a lot of people like that. Sometimes companies overthink what they're trying to do, e.g. the dying days of WCW, rather than just give the fans what they want. And, if we get to the stage where... But my point is, I don't think that anyone at AEW should be trying to follow any kind of status quo. I think they should be doing what feels right, and they can always adjust a suit. You never know.
Right.
But if they want to book the being the elite in a wrestling promotion, it could work. You don't know. You don't know until you try. So
listen, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go, man. You go.
No, I was just going to say, if it's just, if it's like you said, just put on your pads, your elbow pads, and just have matches. Listen, I'm okay with that. I fell in love with pro wrestling. Again, I was 6-7-year-old kid. I didn't know what storylines were. I didn't know what feuds were. I didn't know what heels and faces were. I fell in love with pro wrestling for the wrestling. You know what I'm saying? Like, I fell in love with wrestling, because I wanted to watch two people just beat the crap out of each other. That was what my love, that's how my love of pro wrestling began. So, even if it's just, a series of matches that are very, very, very good, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it because, you know what, when I watch, every once in a while, when I can watch New Japan or Ring of Honor, a lot of the guys that are there, I don't know how those feuds came about. I don't know what their characters are. I don't know what the feuds are. But you know what? Because I enjoy wrestling, the actual art of wrestling so much, I end up finding it enjoyable.
Yeah, no, totally, man. I totally agree. There's a lot to be said for that. And if nothing else, Cody and the Young Bucks understand their audience. And that, absolutely. That's the argument that people say about Vince McMahon. Apparently, he doesn't. So, so do you watch New Japan? Do you keep up to date with that stuff as well?
No, not as much as I should. I mean, I've only really seen one full New Japan show, and that was Dominion back in, I think it was June of this past year.
Not a bad one to watch, man. Not a bad one to watch at all.
That one, was absolutely fantastic. I enjoyed it from start to finish. But no, man, that's what I want to do. I really want to start following, these other promotions a lot closer because, no, I don't know too much about New Japan except for, the guys that, are making waves, like the Kenny Omegas of the world, the Okadas, Naito, Chris Jericho, Hiroshi Tanahashi, all these guys. I pretty much only know them by name, so I really want to get to know New Japan and all these other promotions a little bit better, as much as I can because, WWE consumes a lot of my time during the week. So sometimes.
Oh, of course. I know, yeah.
Yeah, might be a little too much, but I'll try, man. I really, really, really want to get, started on following all these promotions really closely,
Did you read or keep up with anything to do with Wrestle Kingdom 13 that happened on Friday?
Well, the only thing I really know about that is, what you put on your ups and downs video, the day of or the day after.
Thank you, man.
That's really all I know. But yeah, by all accounts, I did read some articles after that. And yeah, no, by all accounts, it was a fantastic show. And it's going to be very hard for, WrestleMania this April to top. So that's something else that's on my watch list. I haven't seen it, but I will see it.
No, well, I just thought we'd bring it up because I haven't talked about it on here after the fact. But yeah, you're right. I don't think it was as good as last year's Wrestle Kingdom, just me personally. But I do think it was awesome. And all the talking points do tie into AEW is the main reason I wanted to bring it up because obviously the Young Bucks lost, Cody Rhodes lost his US title to Juice Robinson, and surprisingly for me, because I really didn't know which way they were going to go, Kenny Omega lost his IWGP Championship to Tanahashi. Now, we know what Cody and we know what the Young Bucks are doing. Kenny Omega is this big question mark, and we don't know what he's going to do. I think you could look at all three companies and say, well, he's probably going to stay with New Japan because he's got to have his big feud with Ibushi. He's got to have his rematch with Tanahashi because they're now 1-1. And you can look at AEW and say, well, all his mates have gone there. He's going to go there too. Or you can go to the next one, which is, well, he go to WWE because the rumor is they've offered him like $3.5 million a year. And despite, some internet process, I don't see how anybody could begrudge a man earning $3.5 million a year doing anything. That's life-changing amount of money, especially for a guy that's been doing this for 15, 20 years, sacrificed a lot of his life. I know he enjoys it, but I'm sure he's given up a lot of stuff. And ultimately, as much as he wants to be a creative artist, which I massively respect, he's also going to want to have financial security because we all want that. That's just innate to our, to our being. So I do, again, tying into everything we're just talking about what happens with all Elite Wrestling, we now have Kenny Omega as it's almost like a meta storyline. He is a real, because his New Japan contract does end at the end of January. He may have already re-signed, but we don't know that. So from a narrative point of view, in about 3 weeks' time, he can sign with whoever he wants. And that is, I think that's really exciting. And it doesn't matter which way he goes, because if we are buying into wrestling for storylines, we always say the best ones are the ones that blur reality. This absolutely blurs reality. We don't know where he's going to go. Where would you like to see him, man? Put Kenny Omega in a promotion. Where do you want him to go?
That's tough, man. I guess really the only thing I know about Kenny Omega, man, is that in the ring, he's a star, man. He's like one of the best wrestlers in the world, if not the best wrestler in the world. I'm biased. I'm always going to be a WWE guy. Me
too, man. Yeah, me too, definitely.
That's just the crux of the matter. No matter how closely I follow all these other promotions, at the end of the day, bad or good, disappointing or really, really good, I'm always going to be a WWE guy. So I'm biased on that perspective. That combined with, with the fact that I don't really know him all that much, I just want to see him in the WWE. But, we don't know if that's going to happen, because he has said in the past that, he's kind of iffy about that. He doesn't really know if he wants to, go for a promotion that may limit his creative, potential. But I think he has there. I did read at some point that he said that he actually does better when he's limited, because he has to be more creative in that sense. Like if he's limited in what he can do, he can be more creative because he has to work within those limitations. I think I heard him say something about that. So who knows? Maybe he comes to the WWE. It's doubtful, but it might happen. You never know.
It could happen, man. I mean, show me someone that can turn down $3.5 million. That ain't easy.
That's not easy.
That's a lot.
Absolutely
yeah,
not.
There's a lot of money. But no, yeah, I mean, Wrestle Kingdom 3 I thought was great. Like, I mean, if I'm being super, super picky now that it's kind of calmed down and we're away from the hype, I thought Ospreay versus Ibushi was brilliant. I thought maybe it had been built up too much, but that always happens. People raise the bar so high. It's still great, and I still advise everyone to go and watch it. But if you've got ideas in your head of the best match you've ever seen, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, my personal favorite match was the main event. I think Tanahashi is ridiculous, especially for a man that's in his 40s. And yeah, to me, if you don't think Kenny Omega is the best wrestler in the world, I think he's in the conversation. I think he's proved that time and time again. He's just, like you say, who he is, even though you've never seen him, because that's the impact he's created within the world of wrestling. And yeah, there's an argument to say that casual fans don't know who he is, but it's not like he hasn't gotten over everywhere he's been. So there's there's nothing to say that, he won't be a success in WWE. I think it's all about booking in WWE. He's got all the tools. He just needs to make sure the office is beside him, much like AJ Styles. And I think in an interview with the Wrestling Observer a couple of years ago, Kenny Omega said one of the reasons he would like to go to WWE is because he wants to fight AJ Styles at WrestleMania.
Right. So, and I think it didn't Seth Rollins put out a tweet? I think it was this past week that he wants to fight Kenny Omega too.
Yeah,
so there you go. Those are that's two dream matches that that could happen. You never know.
That's true.
I mean, when AJ Styles came to the WWE, who would have thought that he was going to come to the WWE? Nobody expected that. And look, he was number 3 in the 2016 Royal Rumble match, and everybody exploded. So imagine what would happen if, let's say, Kenny Omega shows up at this year's Royal Rumble.
I mean, if Kenny Omega shows up this year's Rumble and they don't let him win it, I'll go bonkers, because
absolutely,
I think that'd be crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean, and one thing I was gonna say too about the Wrestle Kingdom card, one of the matches that I was really anticipating as well, the one that I want to see the most is actually Jericho versus Naito, because I did see their first match at Dominion, man, and it was one of my favorites, man. It's just Jericho just beating the crap out of him, showing his more aggressive, more violent side, and I loved it, man. I loved it. So I really want to see what they do, the second time around. So that's one of my most anticipated ones, or the one that I want to see the most. Yeah,
well, I mean, Jericho doing this New Japan run has been absolutely genius for him, because it has taken him to a new level. Like he was probably a legendary figure in wrestling anyway, but now he absolutely is. Like, he's now had this thing, no matter what he does, stays, goes, whatever. He's now had these 12 months where he's proved that he can, adapt to the new generation and stay current and stay relevant and reinvent himself. And yeah, his match with Naito was ridiculous. It started quite slow, but halfway through to the end, it was just absolutely crazy. I mean, DDTs on tables that weren't breaking and smashing each other with kendo sticks, and some really good near falls towards the end. Like the kick out of One Destino was really good. But Yeah, I think, it's really smart on New Japan's end as well, because, again, you're a WWE guy, but you know Chris Jericho. If you hear Chris Jericho doing something like that, you're at least going to look into it. And the fact that he's having these different matches, and having matches, like you say, that are really wrestling-based, and if you did get into wrestling because of wrestling, you're going to appreciate them. Just
absolutely,
New Japan are clearly making a big push this year to try and expand into Europe, into America, and having Chris Jericho involved with them hasn't hurt them at all. Even if he's done with them now, it's only going to get more people to watch. Like you say, you want to see Naito versus Jericho, and the best bit about it is if you do watch it, you're going to love it. It's a really good wrestling match, and also if you do watch the whole card, it feels completely different to everything else they did, which is another reason I liked it. So
there you go. I mean, and really the only way I can really get excited about it is, again, it's wrestling based. Mostly my reasons for watching it. Again, I'm hoping to learn more about all these people as I continue to follow the promotion. But as of yet, I don't really know all that much, unfortunately. So again, I'm in it for the wrestling now. I'm sure the wrestling matches were superb. They were at Dominion. But yeah, man, yeah, I still got to see it.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it is really, really good. And I think we've probably come a long way over the last 2 years in terms of people who were just WWE guys that all of a sudden have fallen in love with New Japan. And I've got absolutely no problem with that. Like, whether you prefer New Japan to WWE or vice versa, you like Ring of Honor, you like Impact, it doesn't matter. It's all about the fact that there is choice out there. And that choice, that's why I get it to a certain extent, because you want WWE to be good. But a small part of me is also always like, if you don't like WWE, there's so much else you can watch. Like, everybody's got demand service now. You could go, even if you wanted to, all the way in America, you could watch Progress if you wanted. They've got an on-demand service. You can just tune in and watch some British wrestling. So I do think we're living in good times. And I also, going back to what we talked about earlier, I think 2019 is going to be the most interesting time in wrestling for years. AEW, Ring of Honor is signing up people like crazy. They've got the Madison Square Garden show. WWE is promising change. There's free agents out there. People are being signed up. I'm excited. I think we're going to have a good 12 months. I really do.
Absolutely. I think we're going to, if everything goes as well as, we're all anticipating it and hoping it will, I think we're going to look back on this in December and be like, you know what? This was probably one of the best years in pro wrestling, honestly, in general.
I hope so. It's all there. Like,
it's all there.
I know it sounds a little bit hyperbolic, but I do think AEW doesn't necessarily have the potential to be a WCW, but does have the potential to at least fill the void that was left by it. And I think they're the first people that have come along in the right time with social media, that have tapped into an audience, so now they have the power to do it. And I hope they do. Like, I really, really hope they do. I really do.
Absolutely.
I really, really do.
Absolutely. I mean, they have the financial backing of, a very wealthy family in the Khans, the owners of the NFL pro football team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they're worth like a little over $6 billion, some crazy number like that. So they have the financial backing. They have fans that want to see them. I want to see them. So yeah, man. I'm hoping they smash it this year, honestly. I'm always going to be a WWE guy, so I'm hoping that WWE smashes it too. Yeah. But I can't wait to see what AEW does. I can't wait.
No, it's true. And the other thing as well, talking about the Khans, the rumor is as well is that AEW is going to be paying comparable contracts to WWE. And that makes them competitive straight away, because if money is something you're concerned about, and that's absolutely fine, and you can go to All Elite Wrestling, but it's not going to hurt your pocket, then you're like, yeah, cool. I'll make my decision based on where I think I'll be used better, or where it's going to be most creative, or whatever, boxes you feel like you need to tick.
Right. I think hence the reason why WWE has been, so adamant about recruiting people, for a while now. Like, even with the UK Championship tournament, I heard like they were recruiting a lot of British wrestlers there, the advent of NXT UK, signing a lot of those British wrestlers, not letting them, work for any of their other promotions anymore. They only can work for WWE affiliated promotions now. So yeah, man, WWE, I think they're looking at all of this and they're saying, you know what, we better at least pay attention. Not that we think that they're gonna be, WCW type competitors or anything, but we better pay attention. That's the reason why I think that, this whole new stuff, I think they have to do it. Again, I don't know if they will, but they absolutely have to. They have to be paying attention.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think they are. I like to give them the benefit of the doubt. Before we do wrap this up, man, I got to ask you a question. As a long-term WWE guy, clearly invested in the product. We'll talk about it more when we get there in a few weeks. But we are a few weeks away from the Royal Rumble. Who you got, dude? Who you got? Who's your pick? Because I think it's one of the most open and interesting Royal Rumbles for a while. You can make the argument for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I guess in terms of the person that has, the most momentum right now, I remember last year, I actually was able to predict correctly that it was Nakamura and Asuka winning.
Nice,
because,
man.
they
Well,
both
fair
had,
play to you, man.
No, but I mean, really, the only reason why I picked them is because, they had so much momentum last year before that Royal Rumble match that, I was like, oh, these two have to have at least a very clear shot at winning. And, for the first time ever, I actually predicted correctly. I don't think I've ever predicted a Royal Rumble correctly before. That was my very first one. So I guess this year, I mean, if you want like my subjective opinion, like the person that I would like to see win, Finn Balor. I'm a Finn Balor guy.
Yeah.
He's my favorite out of the current crop of guys. He's my favorite. So I would love to see Finn Balor not only win the Rumble, win the Universal Championship back.
What do you think about how he's being treated at the moment, man? He's not, he's not being treated especially well. December was better for him, but before that, he wasn't doing much.
No, he wasn't doing much. He had that, that little feud with Baron Corbin that kind of went nowhere. He's just been kind of flying in limbo. I know he did have a few good matches with, Seth Rollins at the beginning of the year. The IC championship matches, I think. The WrestleMania match, the Triple Threat match was really good. At the beginning of the year, it was almost like he was in contention for the Universal Championship, but never really got there, the Elimination Chamber match. But, he's kind of been floating around. So, no, as a guy who really likes Finn Balor, and, just looking at it, critically, from a critical perspective, I don't like the way that, he's being booked. I think he has so much potential, and I'm kind of glad. I mean, he has been winning a lot of matches lately on Raw, especially. So hopefully that means something later on.
Why don't you think they push his demon gimmick more? Like, we don't see the demon anymore. In NXT, it was saved for the big pay-per-views and it worked, but yeah, now we don't see it at all.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't even know why he smiles so often. Like, why do they have him smile so often? I don't know. I don't know why we don't see his demon gimmick more often. I know we saw it, I think, at SummerSlam for that one match against Baron Corbin, but I don't think it was even their last match. So I don't even know what that was all about. So I don't know, man. I'm hopeful that, this is the year that, things turn around for him and, he gains his popularity back somehow. It's going to be difficult, but, I'm hopeful that they will. They'll be able to do that.
You keep the faith, man. I like it. I keep
the faith.
Never, ever drop the faith.
Absolutely not, man. But I guess in terms of other guys that can win the Rumble, McIntyre.
Yeah,
definitely.
I don't know. No, definitely.
I don't know how anybody else has a better case for the Rumble right now than McIntyre from the men's side. I mean, he's been on an absolute tear. I know he lost his last match, I think, a triple threat match. But, man, he's been on an absolute tear, and he has that WWE look. He just looks like the kind of guy that should be champion and should be dominating. So, he could be the winner. There's just a lot of guys that could win. It's an open field. It's like you said, it's an open field this year. It really is.
That's why I like it. I like not. Yep. I was the same last year. I didn't pick Nakamura at all, but I was glad it happened. But yeah, I go Seth. I go Drew. Finn could be an outside chance. Who knows? Like, there's loads of where they could go. So that's why I'm excited about it.
Absolutely, man.
Right, there we go. Amazingly, we're coming up to the hour mark, which always surprises me. Always flies by these things. Dude,
it's already been an hour?
Yeah,
wow.
Dude, yeah. It's crazy, right? We could do this all day. We could do it all day.
Yep.
Is there anything you want to pimp out or anything you want to mention, dude, before we wrap up? You don't have to, but I always like to give people the opportunity.
I don't know. I guess if people, want to reach me, I'm always curious, to talk to people on the internet about wrestling. I guess they can just the best place to reach me is Twitter. That's the one that I, look at consistently. The others I don't really look at. So you can catch me there at Sergito. That's SERGITO. Andres ANDRES 19. So Sergito Andres 19.
There you go. So go talk to him, especially if you are a Bill Goldberg fan, or maybe you are Bill Goldberg. Man. I don't know, but you can have a big loving. You can have an absolutely big loving. It's right there. It's right there for you.
Absolutely, man.
All right, awesome, dude. Well, dude, thank you so much for your time, man, especially for calling it all the way from Florida. That is just, it will always be cool to me, no matter what. It would always be cool.
No, absolutely, man. Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun, and yeah, man, just hopefully you return to wrestling, man. I know you've had some shoulder problems. Hopefully you get that cleared up very quickly, man.
I have. All I will say, and don't no one get too crazy excited, but just keep watching Defiant. That's all I'm going to say. Everybody keep watching Defiant, so you'll find out what's going to happen. But I'll stop talking there. As always as well, thank you to everyone that has listened. Again, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Simon316. This podcast will also be on YouTube at youtube.com/The Minute Report Rules. If you're on iTunes or anything like that, give us a review, give us 5 stars. It always helps. And again, I'm at patreon.com Simon Miller 316. That's how I keep all this stuff running. So if you can throw me $1, I really would appreciate it. We'll be back on Wednesday to do the live podcast on YouTube. So tune in for that around about 2 p.m. GMT. That is my time. May actually be a little bit late this week, but keep an eye out. It will go up. And we'll be back on Friday as well, because that is just the schedule we keep. Sergio, my man, thank you so much again, dude. This has been awesome.
Thank you again, man. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I'll talk to everybody else in a couple of days as we rewrite the podcast schedule in 2019. I'll speak to you then.